For years, Demet Özdemir had carried a truth that she rarely allowed anyone to glimpse, an invisible weight she hid behind interviews, red carpets, rehearsals, and the carefully crafted smile she had learned to wear like armor. Fame had taught her many things, but the most important lesson was this: the world is quick to celebrate your victories, but it is even quicker to devour your vulnerabilities. She knew this better than anyone. That's why the night she finally decided to speak was unlike any other. It wasn't planned. It wasn't scripted. There was no PR strategy, no prepared notes tucked inside her purse, no warning for the millions of fans who would soon be asking themselves the same question: why now? The evening began quietly. She had agreed to a long-form interview with an international platform known for deep, emotional storytelling, an interview meant to focus on her career, her growth, and her new projects. Nothing unusual. Nothing dangerous. At least, that's what she thought, but the interviewer, an older woman with soft eyes and a disarming calmness, asked questions not about scripts or sets, but about life. About the moments that shaped her. The moments that broke her. The moments she rarely revisited. And then came his name, Demet, the interviewer said gently. Over the years, fans have felt a real connection between you and Yaman. A partnership that seemed to transcend acting. How do you look back on that period of your life? There it was, the question she always danced around, the question that followed her like a shadow. She could have dodged it again, she could have smiled politely, given a vague answer, and moved on, but something in her, something that had been quietly unraveling for years, no longer wanted to pretend. For a moment, she looked down at her hands, fingers tangled together. When she finally lifted her gaze, her eyes were softer, unguarded. What I felt for Ken, she began, her voice barely above a whisper, no one will ever fully understand. The room seemed to freeze. Even the cameras felt as if they were holding their breath. Demet exhaled slowly, as if releasing years of suppressed emotion. You have people in your life who come and go. They teach you things, they leave memories, they leave lessons. But then, she paused, a faint, sad smile touching her lips. There are people who change the way you experience the world itself. She wasn't speaking as an actress now, she wasn't speaking as the public figure whose life was dissected online, she was speaking as a woman who had loved deeply, fiercely, and quietly. One thing I learned, she continued, is that love doesn't always show itself the way people expect. Sometimes it's loud. Sometimes it's chaotic. But sometimes, it's a truth you carry in your heart long after everything else fades. The interviewer leaned forward. Are you saying you were in love with him? Demet closed her eyes briefly, searching for the right answer, not the safe one, not the public one, but the honest one. When you feel something that powerful, she said softly, love isn't even a big enough word. The admission hung in the air like a confession she never meant to make but somehow had always needed to say. Not for headlines. Not for fans. For herself. And yet, she added with a trembling breath, what came with those feelings, not everyone could handle. Her voice cracked. Just for a second, but the camera caught it.in that moment. The woman the world knew as confident, composed, untouchable, looked human. Vulnerable. Real. A truth was finally surfacing. A truth she had buried for years. The truth that would only get deeper from here. The moment Demet's words left her lips, the entire room seemed to shift. The interviewer didn't speak. The crew didn't move. Even the cameras felt quieter, as if aware that they were capturing something rare. Something that wasn't meant for the public eye but had slipped through the cracks of her carefully constructed emotional walls. Demet looked away for a moment, trying to gather herself. She wasn't someone who cried easily during interviews, not because she lacked emotion, but because she had learned to control it. But now, she felt her heart beating too loudly, her thoughts moving too quickly, and the weight of old memories pressing against her ribs. The interviewer finally broke the silence. What made it so powerful? She asked gently. What was it that stayed with you all these years? Demet let out a slow breath, her eyes drifting toward the window as if she could see the past through the glass. It was him, she said simply, the way he entered my life, it changed everything I thought I knew about myself. She hesitated, just long enough for the pain behind her eyes to soften. I had worked with talented people before. I had friendships, I had connections. But with Can, it was different. It wasn't something that built slowly or carefully. It was immediate. Like recognizing someone your heart somehow already knew. Her fingers intertwined unconsciously, as if trying to hold on to something invisible. Some people come into your life and fit into the empty spaces you never knew were there, she continued. That's what he did. He filled the quiet moments. The exhausting days. The fears. The insecurities. He understood me in a way I wasn't prepared for. The interviewer nodded softly. Did he hurt you? Demet paused, not because the answer was hard, but because the truth was layered. In love, the hurt doesn't always come from betrayal or fights, she said. Sometimes the hurt comes from timing. From life moving too fast. From people expecting too much. From the pressure of being watched by millions while trying to protect something fragile. Her voice softened. We were young. We were inexperienced with that level of attention. We didn't understand yet how heavy love becomes when the world wants to own it. She sat back slightly, her shoulders tense. There were days when I felt like I was losing myself. Not because of him, but because everything around us became louder than the bond we were trying to understand. Every smile, every glance, every moment between us was analyzed, stretched, twisted. And you start to doubt, not your feelings, but whether you're allowed to have them. The interviewer leaned forward. Did he love you back? Demet's lips parted, but no sound came immediately. She blinked slowly, remembering things she had buried so deeply that she rarely accessed them. He cared, she said softly. More than people know. More than he could ever show publicly. There were moments, quiet, small, private moments, when I could see it in his eyes. When everything felt right. A faint smile appeared and vanished just as quickly. But love isn't always about what you feel. It's also about what you can carry. And we were carrying too much. Her voice trembled. When I said no one will ever understand what I felt for him, I meant it. Because it was bigger than romance. It was connection. Recognition. A bond that felt ancient and new at the same time. The interviewer hesitated before asking her next question. And if you could go back, would you do anything differently? Demet's eyes glistened, not with regret, but with a truth she had never spoken out loud. I don't know if love like that comes twice in a lifetime, she whispered, but I do know, letting go of it was the hardest thing I ever did. The room grew silent again. It was clear now, this wasn't a simple confession, this wasn't nostalgia, this was the unveiling of a chapter she had kept locked for years, and it was only the beginning. For a moment, Demet didn't speak. Her eyes drifted down to her hands. The same hands that had once trembled before important scenes, the same hands Can used to hold gently when the pressure of fame became too much. She remembered the warmth of those days, the softness of his presence, the way he could calm her with nothing but a look. But memories were like waves, they didn't just arrive, they pulled you under. The interviewer, sensing a shift, waited silently as Demet collected herself. People think relationships break because of one moment, she finally said, her voice quiet but steady. One mistake. One fight. One decision. But it's rarely that simple. She intertwined her fingers, grounding herself. With Can, we never had one big explosion. No dramatic ending. No betrayal. It was more like, life pushed us to opposite sides faster than we could hold on. Her voice softened, a fragile honesty bleeding through each word. We were two people trying to figure out who we were, while everyone else decided who we should be. She looked up, the camera catching a glimmer of vulnerability in her gaze. People assume we walked away because the feelings faded, she continued. But that wasn't true. If anything, the feelings were the one thing that never confused me. The interviewer leaned forward. What confused you then? Demet breathed in deeply, the world around us. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. When millions of people watch your every move, it stops being just your story. It becomes theirs. They create versions of you that don't match reality. They celebrate you one day and tear you apart the next. And in the middle of all that, you're trying to protect something fragile, while not losing yourself. Her voice tightened. There were days when I felt suffocated. Not by him, but by the noise. By the pressure to be perfect. By the expectation that what we had on screen had to become something concrete, labeled, visible. Even our silences were analyzed. Our distance became headlines. Our closeness became speculation. She looked down, a sad smile playing briefly on her lips. That's what people don't understand. Love doesn't break because two people don't care. Sometimes it breaks because caring too much becomes unbearable. The interviewer's tone softened. Did you talk about it? About the pressure? All the time, Demet whispered. But talking doesn't erase the weight. It just reminds you how heavy it's become. A flicker of emotion crossed her face, pain, nostalgia, something that lingered between longing and acceptance. He tried, she said gently. More than people give him credit for. He wanted to shield me from the media storm, from the critics, from the speculation. He wanted us to have a space where we could breathe. She closed her eyes for a moment. But sometimes, the harder you try to protect something, the more fragile it becomes. The interviewer hesitated before asking the next question, aware of the delicacy of the topic. So what was the moment, the exact moment when you realized it wouldn't last? Demet's breath hitched. There was no moment, she said softly. Just a slow realization. A quiet grief. It felt like watching something beautiful slip through your fingers, and no matter how tightly you tried to hold on, it kept slipping. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. I think the hardest part was this: we didn't stop loving each other. We just stopped knowing how to exist in the world that surrounded us. Silence filled the room again, thick, painful, honest. The interviewer nodded slowly. And after it ended, what hurt the most? Demet swallowed, the emotion in her voice undeniable now. The absence, she whispered. Not of him in my life, but of the version of me that I only knew when I was with him. It was a confession few would expect, fewer would understand, and none would forget. And as the cameras captured her quiet heartbreak, one thing became clear: sometimes love doesn't die, sometimes it becomes a ghost, one that follows you, haunts you, and reminds you of the life you almost had. For a moment, Demet didn't speak. Her eyes drifted away from the interviewer and toward the floor, as if she were watching a version of herself she no longer recognized. The cameras continued rolling softly, but she no longer seemed aware of them. Something inside her had opened, slowly, painfully, and now there was no going back. When everything ended between us, she began, her voice barely above a whisper, I thought silence would protect me. She paused, taking a breath that trembled slightly. People don't understand what silence means in this industry. Silence isn't peace. Silence isn't healing. Silence is carrying everything alone. The interviewer nodded gently, encouraging her without interrupting. Demet's gaze softened with memory. When we drifted apart, I convinced myself that if I kept my distance, if I stopped talking about it, stopped thinking about it, stopped feeling it, I would eventually move on. That's what people do, right? They walk away, and life just continues. She shook her head. But that's not what happened. Because he wasn't just another person in my life. He wasn't a co-star I worked with for a year and then forgot. He was someone whose presence changed the way I breathed. And losing that kind of connection, her voice cracked, it doesn't leave quietly. The interviewer leaned in. What do you mean? Demet looked up, eyes shimmering. The truth? The truth is, after everything ended, I didn't know who I was without him. Her confession hung in the air like fragile glass. People saw me working, laughing, traveling. And yes, I was living. But inside, I was rebuilding myself from zero. Because when someone knows you that deeply, when you shared parts of yourself you never showed anyone else, losing them forces you to meet yourself all over again. She swallowed, and I wasn't ready to meet that version of me yet. There was a long, heavy pause before she continued. Sometimes people ask, why didn't you fight for it? Why didn't you try harder? And I wish they knew, fighting wasn't the problem. We fought. For us, for the bond, for quiet spaces where we could breathe. But the world around us, expectations, rumors, pressure, it was like trying to hold on to something beautiful while a storm was tearing everything apart. Her voice softened into something fragile, and I was tired. Not of him. Never of him. I was tired of the noise. The weight. The feeling that I had to choose between my sanity and the love I wasn't strong enough to carry anymore. The interviewer's voice warmed. You loved him. But loving him hurt you? Demet nodded slowly. Loving him was the most effortless thing I've ever done, she said. But living with what came with that love, that was the part that broke me. She met the interviewer's eyes. There were days when I would wake up and forget for a moment that everything had changed. And then I would check my phone or see a headline or read a comment, and I'd feel that pain all over again. Not because he hurt me personally, but because the world wouldn't let us be two human beings trying to figure out something complicated. Her voice tightened again. I didn't walk away because I stopped feeling. I walked away because I couldn't keep drowning in something so beautiful and so heavy at the same time. The interviewer hesitated. Do you regret walking away? Demet closed her eyes. A single tear slid down her cheek, gentle, honest. I regret that we never got the chance to experience our story without the world interfering, she whispered. I regret that silence became our only way of surviving something that was meant to be lived out loud. She opened her eyes again, soft, wounded, honest, but I don't regret loving him. That part will always be mine. The cameras captured every breath, every tremble, every truth she had shielded for years, and for the first time, the world saw the woman behind the smile. The one who loved deeply, lost silently, and carried a ghost she never dared to speak of. Until now, the interviewer sensed that they had reached the fragile core of Demet's truth. Her breathing was steady but shallow, the kind of breath someone takes when they've walked through the deepest part of their pain and finally reached the realization waiting at the center of it. If he were sitting here right now, what would you want to tell him? The air shifted. Demet's eyelashes fluttered, and for a moment, she looked like she might break. She inhaled slowly. I think I would tell him that I'm sorry. Sorry, not because she was wrong, not because he was, but because life, fear, pressure, and silence had stolen something precious between them. I'm sorry we didn't know how to protect what we had, she whispered. I'm sorry we ran from the parts that scared us. I'm sorry we let go before we understood what we were losing. The interviewer asked gently, do you think he knew how much he meant to you? He knew, she whispered. Even in silence. Even in distance. Some people, you can't hide the truth from. Memories flickered behind her eyes, laughter unset, quiet conversations, the way he looked at her during the moments when everything felt too heavy. When I said no one will ever understand what I felt for him, she continued, I meant it because it wasn't perfect. It was deep. Messy. Overwhelming. Confusing. But real. So real that even now, I wonder if a part of me will always carry it. The interviewer hesitated. And do you think he still feels something too? A bittersweet smile touched her lips. Some bonds don't disappear, she said. They fade, they quiet down, but they don't vanish. Not truly. If life gave you one more chance, would you take it? Demet didn't answer immediately. She looked beside her, at the empty space that felt full of a presence she had never let go of. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but sure. I think I would let the universe decide. Because if something was truly meant, it finds its way back. Not through pressure. Not through force. Just, naturally. A tear slid down her cheek, and maybe, some stories aren't finished. They just pause until both hearts are ready again. A woman who had loved deeply. A woman who had lost silently. A woman who finally admitted the truth the world had long suspected. She never stopped carrying him. Not in her mind, not in her memories, not in her heart, and maybe, just maybe, he had never stopped carrying her either.